what I do for a living, everybody loves giving me grief when fantasy football does not go my way, which, as you know, it's the vagaries of the fantasy gods. Right. Matthew, there, but for the grace of you go. Listen, I mean, you must get that all the time.
I play in a sure, of course. I mean, I play in a fantasy football league with Adam Schefter. Adam Schefter, who to me is as plugged in as any human on the universe.
Yes.
Literally, I have sat next to him every Sunday for 8 years. I see all the coaches and assistant coaches and GMs and people around the league that text him constantly. Yes. He knows everything, and yet he has never won the league that we have played in. I mean, and he's as knowledgeable as there is about the NFL, about the inner workings, about who's getting started, who's not. So, yes.
The fantasy football gods level the playing field.
Right.
For everybody. I'm trying to explain that to everybody, but it doesn't.
It is an oblong ball made of leather. Weird stuff happens.
Weird stuff happens.
My favorite story, I've told this one before, but I'll tell you very quickly, which will take you off the hook.
No, so I haven't even told you how I got on the hook, but that's okay.
Well, so
go ahead.
But this, in terms of the vagaries of fantasy football.
Yes, sir.
Okay. So as you know, I work with Tim and Matt Hasselbeck over at ESPN,
yes, you
right? Do. So Matt plays fantasy football, and when he was the quarterback of the Seattle Seahawks, 2009, he drafted as his fantasy football quarterback that year himself. And,
of course he did.
And his former Green Bay Packer teammate, Brett Favre. Remember, he used to back up Brett.
Yes.
So those were his two quarterbacks. And that was the year that Brett, his first year in Minnesota. And so for your listeners who don't remember, he was awesome. Brett Favre was awesome fantasy quarterback in Minnesota. So in week 5 of the 2009 season, Matt had a decision. Brett was playing the Rams, who that year were a really poor team. And the Seahawks were playing the Jags. Jacksonville won 2 straight. Matt had missed 2 games with a lower back injury. And so Matt Hasselbeck decided to bench himself and start Brett Favre. I will save you guys the trouble of looking this up. What happens is the Vikings get a big, Peterson has a big day. Brett Favre throws 1 interception, 1 touchdown, finishes as something like the 18th best quarterback in fantasy that week. Meanwhile, Matt Hasselbeck gets into a shootout with the Jags, throws 4 touchdown passes, is the #1 quarterback in fantasy, sitting on his own bench. Rich, I want you to think about this. Matt Hasselbeck knew the tape, had seen the tape, knew the game plan.
Knew the matchups.
Right. Could call an audible at any play. Literally touched the football on every offensive play. Matt Hasselbeck had as much control over an NFL game as any fantasy player ever in the history of the sport and still got it wrong. So if Matt Hasselbeck can't get it right, what hope do any of us have?
Correct. I feel off the hook now.
Right.
Unfortunately, though, I told 2 guys in the league who I was going against when I was up by a game with a couple of games to go in the season, they're like, let's make a bet who lasts longer. Okay. Making the playoffs. And I'm like, done.
Right. Sure.
Done. I was so confident.
Absolutely.
Done. The bet was taking them to dinner or vice versa.
Right. Okay.
But it was also dinner for 10.
Huh. Okay.
It wasn't just taking them to dinner. Dinner for 10.
Dinner for 10.
So I lost, of course. Don't want to go into the details. But I was on the hook for dinner for 10. They chose a place called Medeo's here in Los Angeles, where you stare at a meatball and it costs $50. All right. And one of the guys they chose to fill out the table, the rest of the league, essentially, who was there in Los Angeles. One of the guys who I lost the bet to, who's such a big fan, he's at Packers camp right now, watching his Packers because he's from Wisconsin, Murph, who's called into the show, starts ordering like 19 carpaccios, and even worse, towards the end of the meal, ordering like this millionth bottle of sparkling water instead of taking, like tap.
Right, sure.
And I'm just pissed. I'm so upset. I'm thinking this is going to be thousands of dollars. Bill comes and one of the guys told the staff to put on a fake $2,500 bottle of wine. And I fell for it, hook, line, and sinker, and told them all off.
Wow.
Told them all off.
Right.
Because I had a little in me, and I was Ubering, and I told them all off, and they put it on video. And then let me know that that was a fake bottle, and it was awful.
By the way, Hasselbeck beat the Jags 41-0, 241 yards, 4 touchdowns that week.
Right, there you go.
And you work with Matt and Tim. And by the way, I don't know if you know, I work with the Lost Hasselbeck.
Yes.
Chris Brockman over there, who is actually, you once made Sage Steele legitimately at a post-ESPY party think you were a Lost Hasselbeck
We
brother.
duped Sage Steele. She was mad that she had never met me sooner than that night.
But Tim and Matt are great, and Matt tells that story on himself all the time, and I've written about it. But that's my favorite fantasy football story of all time.
Want to take a quick break and give folks some hardcore information that they could actually use portably into a draft that we're assuming they're not animals that's actually still to come.
Right.
Okay.
Done.
The Rich Eisen Show, weekdays at noon Eastern on Audience.